everybody, in today's video I'm going to talk to you about 10 external factors that are probably beyond your control that will impact the value of your house. My name is Dawn Dickinson. The channel is Living in Northern Arizona, and every week I post a video about living in the Northern Arizona towns. I am also a realtor in Northern Arizona, so if you ever have a question about buying or selling a property in Sedona, Verde Valley, Flagstaff, or Prescott, feel free to reach out to me and give me a call, text, email. My contact information is always in the description below. So let's start out with number one. Number one is location, and I'm not talking about location as in what city you're in, because of course we know location is one of the biggest factors in your home values. I'm talking about within your city, the location. For example, if you are on a busy street, or if you are on a busy corner, a place where you have a lot of traffic, if you're over your back wall is a business, say you've got a bar or a Circle K or something, that will impact the value of your home. So keep that in mind when you're looking to buy something. Okay, number two is sloppy neighbors. Do you have a slob who lives next door to you? And does your sloppy neighbor have a bunch of barking dogs or a bunch of smells that are coming from their yard? That will make your home unattractive. And I'm going to give you a recent example. I went to see a beautiful home in Munns Park. It looked fantastic in the listing photos. It was a great place, a good value, and I pull up and right next door there's a house, and there are 4 or 5 cars in the driveway, plus a couple of side-by-sides and a motorcycle all in front of the house. And in addition to that, the front deck, porch, and yard looked like it was an unloading zone for St. Vincent de Paul. I mean, they had junk everywhere, big trash bags sitting up on the porch, and what a shame, what a huge mess that was. I went inside the home, looked around, beautiful home, and if that neighbor wasn't there, that home would have sold immediately, but I did a hard pass on that because just next door, that neighbor was certainly an eyesore. Okay, number 3 is, are there a lot of rentals in the area? And in some cases it didn't matter. It didn't matter as much in the past, but now what we have is the short-term rentals. And in a lot of places like the resort town, for example, here in Sedona where I live, or in Munns Park or Flagstaff, there will be a lot of short-term rentals, and people who are looking to buy don't want to have a constant hotel party right next door. They might pass up your property if it is an area that allows short-term rentals. On the other hand, short-term rentals could make your house more valuable because investors are interested in those. And in a resort town like Sedona or Flagstaff, again, my example, because that's where I live, it could make your value higher. I live in Sedona. I do have a couple of long-term rentals in my block, and it's hard to find an area in Sedona that doesn't have them. But in some cases, having a lot of rentals in the neighborhood, and especially if you are in a condo or a townhouse community, that could actually impact your ability to get financing. The number of rentals is something that you might consider if you are looking to buy a new home. Okay, number 4 is if there are a lot of sex offenders registered in the area. Now, the listing agent or the buyer's agent probably is not going to be able to tell you how many sex offenders, but that's something you could easily research on your own. There are a lot of software verification companies like Been Verified or Instant Checkmate that you can do a run on the property and get a huge list. Whenever I'm looking for people, it will show me all of the sex offenders in the area. So if you have a nice neighborhood home where people are coming in with a family and they do a search and they see that there's 400 sex offenders in a 4-mile block, that's going to turn off people, and you might not have as good of a return on your investment buying your home in an area that has a lot of registered sex offenders. Number 5 is if your home is in a flood zone. A lot of people don't even realize that some areas could have flood zones. Like, for instance, if you're buying a home in Phoenix, probably not a concern, even though there are flood zones in Phoenix. But here in Verde Valley or Flagstaff, for instance, there are some homes that will pop up and they'll be in a flood zone, and of course that does scare people off, and it may require your buyer to get extra flood insurance. So having a home in a flood zone, when you're looking and you're like, oh, I don't care, but that might have an impact for you down the road because it could affect the value of the house. And another thing, when we're talking about water and floods, if you're in an area that has no water supply, like the reason I'm bringing this up is because Rio Verde homes near Scottsdale have recently been in the news, if you live in Arizona, where they were purchasing water trucked in and hauled and provided to the community by the city of Scottsdale, but then we got into a drought season and the city of Scottsdale didn't want to sell them water anymore. And now the water supply, imagine having a house in the desert and no guaranteed source of water. That drastically impacted the prices and the values of those homes. So flood zone, water type issues, keep that in mind because that could impact the value of your home down the road. Now, the next issue is just the noise level. And when noise, I'm talking about different from noisy neighbors. If you're in an area that, again, has a busy street nearby, or if there is an airport, or if there is a concert venue within earshot, those things could turn some people off. You might not be bothered by it, but other people might be. Like I'm, 2 blocks from Cardinal Stadium. I can hear all the noise whenever there's an event, that type of thing. Or again, an airport, if you're like thinking of, I'm going to move into this house and it's near the airport, you might not care about that, but some other people do. Or if you're near the train tracks, I know that Flagstaff, there is a train that runs through town that is very busy, and sometimes people don't want to be close to the train tracks. So the noise level that's possible by these external sources, that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, now number 7 is HOA. There are a lot of people that want a house that has no HOA, and that's fine, that's prerogative, or other people that do want an HOA, but they don't want a very intrusive HOA. So if you have an HOA, 2 things to look out for. One is it's a very expensive HOA. If you're going more than $350, $400 a month for an HOA in a townhouse, that could be pretty pricey. And if you're in a single family home, an HOA that's more than $200 a month might steer people away unless you've got some great amenities like possibly a community pool or a clubhouse. So an HOA that's pricey, and then the other one is if you have one of these HOAs where people are always driving around and the next day they give you a citation because you didn't put your garbage can to the street, that type of a thing can impact the value of your home. But on the flip side, a place like here in Sedona, Arizona, HOA can be good because if you're a person who's looking to live in a community, you like the HOA because a lot of the HOAs have short-term rental restrictions, and that will keep somebody from buying the house next to you that will have constant parties or vacationers from short-term rentals. So definitely consider the HOA, and when you're looking at listings, it will often have the HOA fee in the listing, but your buyer's agent or your seller's agent should be able to tell you what is the HOA fee for in that particular subdivision. Now, number 8, sometimes people ask me this, and this does not usually affect the impact of the price of your home, is if there has been a homicide or a suicide or a death in the house, because the seller is not obligated to disclose that information. That they can keep that secret if they want. They can tell you, certainly. So if that is a concern, if you're worried about angry spirits or any kind of bad energy in the house, you would have to do your own research, and that's why it may not impact the value of your home unless it's a very serious, widely publicized event. But I tell my buyers, if you're concerned that somebody might have died in the home, you can go to a website and it's called diedinhouse.org, and you can put in the address and it will tell you if anybody has ever passed away in that home. Now, I do have a video I did about this maybe 2 years ago where I tested it out. I put in a known address where I knew somebody had died, and certainly it came up and it gave all the listings of that person's death and their age and everything in the home, and that it was a natural death. So the fact that somebody has been killed in your house may or may not impact the value. If it's a high profile case, it might, but if a buyer is not interested in knowing that, or they don't care about knowing that, you don't have to disclose it. Okay, here's another one. You might not think of it as power lines. Oh my goodness, who wants to look out the back of their house or the front of the house and see huge power lines running across their backyard? And some people are concerned because there have been reported incidents that electromagnetic rays could cause cancer, or there are some other issues that can cause in people's health. So having power lines very close to your home, that could be a turnoff. If not worried about the health problems associated with power lines, the other thing is that they just can be an ugly eyesore when you're looking out your window. And number 10 is pollution. Are you living in an area that has known high pollution? That can certainly defer people from buying your home. So if you're in a very high polluted area, I know here in northern Arizona where I live, there's really not a lot of pollution except for cases when we're having a forest fire or a controlled burn. Most of the time the air quality up here is fantastic, but if you're in a polluted area where you go outside and you can just kind of have that smell that, it's a high pollution day, that didn't used to be the case in Phoenix. nice when I lived there as a child, but as many millions of people have moved into the Valley of the Sun in the wintertime or hot days, sometimes you can usually it's in the wintertime, you can just smell the pollution, and it's could be a real turnoff for people. And then one more, I've got a bonus item, is the view. So if you've got a house with a great view and there's an empty lot behind you, you might want to consider the fact that if somebody puts in a 2-story home there, that could block your view, and that could make your house slightly less valuable if you're in an area where it's known for views. Like, for instance, I live in Sedona, Arizona. If your house has a view, that's going to give you a premium for your house. Now, I, for instance, have a great view of Courthouse Butte behind me, but there is one giant tree that blocks half of Courthouse View. So if that tree would come down in a lightning strike or a big storm, I would probably gain value on my home, but because it blocks about half of it, you know, that's kind of a bummer for me. But then there are a lot of birds and squirrels that live in that tree, so that kind of makes up for it. And I still have a good view of Courthouse Butte. It would just be better if that tree came down. So that's it. Those are the top 10 things that are outside of your control that could impact the value of your home. My name is Dawn Dickinson. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing, because I post videos like this every single week. And I am a realtor in Northern Arizona. So if you ever have a question about buying or selling a home or a piece of land, please give me a call, text, email. My contact information is always in the description below, and so you can reach out to me and I will get back to you. I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you back here again next week.